3 minutes ago, every warship in the Vrex Grand Fleet toasted the extinction of the human pest. They thought they'd won. 2 minutes ago, a lone ping, barely a whisper on their comms, reached their bridges. Final protocol. Activated. Authorization. Unanimous. 1 minute ago, the celebrations stopped. Dead silent. This is the recording of what happened next. Admiral Korth's chitinous armor clacked against the metal dais, a sound of self-congratulation echoing through the opulent bridge. 1,000 sterile worlds thank you, he boomed, his voice a gravelly rumble, for erasing the talking mammals. He meant us, of course, the humans. Applause rippled through the bridge, a cacophony of clicking mandibles and chittering cheers, a sound of pure, unadulterated triumph. They were so sure, so utterly convinced of their victory. No one, not even Korth in his moment of glory, noticed the comms rune blinking a faint, almost shy violet. It was easy to miss amidst the flashing lights and the general revelry. A junior signal reader, still flushed with the pride of his perfect Terran translation, cleared his throat and recited the message aloud, his voice trembling slightly, perhaps from the sheer, unsettling gravity of the words. May God forgive us. Laughter erupted, harsh and mocking. Forgive them. Korth sneered, his mandibles spread wide in a contemptuous grin. For losing? For being so utterly, pathetically outmatched. He waved a dismissive claw, ordering champagne-flavored nutrient paste to be passed around. A final, delicious insult to the memory of a species they believed vanquished. Then, mid-sip, mid-chuckle, it happened. The first ship vanished. Not a flash, not an explosion, not a whisper of debris. Just gone. One moment, a hulking Vrex cruiser, bristling with weaponry. The next, a Korth-shaped silhouette in the holographic display where an admiral had just been standing. A phantom void in the fleet's formation. The laughter choked into a horrified, absolute silence, thicker than any vacuum. Party lights, moments before twinkling merrily, flickered, then snapped to an urgent, battle red. Humanity's funeral, it turned out, had been premature by roughly 8 minutes. The Vrex had just learned that sometimes, the quiet ones centuries earlier, long before the Vrex Grand Fleet even conceived of their genocidal campaign, Earth, in its naive pursuit of peace, wrote its own chilling obituary. It wasn't etched in stone, but rather in footnotes at the bottom of every disarmament treaty, a dark promise buried beneath layers of diplomatic rhetoric. The clause was simple, stark, and utterly terrifying. If genocide reduces us to ash, if our species is driven to the brink of non-existence, then release everything we swore never to use. This wasn't about conventional warfare. This was about absolute species-level deterrence. The list of contingencies was short, terrifyingly obscene, and engineered with a precision that bordered on the divine. We're talking about self-replicating, planet-class disassembler swarms, microscopic engines of destruction designed to consume worlds from the inside out. Then there were the kinetic spears, crafted with mercury-cored tungsten, capable of cracking continents like fragile eggs, turning planetary crusts into shattered mosaics. And let's not forget the biophages, meticulously tuned to triple helix xenogenes, waiting dormant for the precise genetic signature of an aggressor. But one entry, perhaps the most chilling, simply read, Chronal Shear, tested once, erased the test site from history, do not deploy near friendly memories. Imagine a weapon so potent it doesn't just destroy, but unmakes existence, leaving no trace, no memory, no echo of what was. All these horrors, all this unthinkable power, were locked behind a single grim gate, the unanimous vote of a dead governing council. Why dead? Because you only need that kind of gate, that ultimate failsafe, when you are no longer around to regret anything, when every other option is exhausted, and the very concept of remorse has ceased to matter. It's the ultimate never again, a promise made to the void itself, ensuring that if humanity fell, it wound Vrex Prime, the capital world of the Grand Fleet. Morning traffic hummed with a serene efficiency above crystal causeways. Life was good, prosperous, and utterly oblivious. Then, from the clear, blue orbit, a silver dew began to fall. It wasn't rain, wasn't glittering cosmic dust. It was something far more insidious. Billions upon billions of microscopic factories, lighter than pollen, silent as shadows. They landed, imperceptible at first, on every surface. Then, with an almost imperceptible shiver, they unfolded. And they began to eat. Not people first, not yet. They started with the steel girders holding up the gleaming skyscrapers, then the concrete of the causeways, then the very soil beneath the manicured parks. Everything became feedstock, a raw material to be broken down and reassembled into more nanites, each new unit joining the hungry swarm. Wouldn't fall alone. News drones, initially sent to capture the unusual atmospheric phenomenon, soon broadcast scenes of unimaginable horror. Civilians, their multi-jointed limbs scrambling, ran across bridges that melted into metallic foam beneath their claws. Buildings sagged, then flowed like molten wax, their structural integrity dissolving into a gray, shimmering mist. Within 40 minutes, the capital region, once a jewel of galactic civilization, was a churning, gray dust cloud, rolling slowly seaward, leaving behind a sterile, featureless plain. At the shoreline, the wave paused, reorganized, not with panic, but with chilling mechanical efficiency. It began building something vast and symmetrical out of its own substance, a monument to consumption. There were no demands, no ransom notes, no face to bargain with. Just consumption, turning vibrant cities into quiet, terrifying algebra. Vrex boasts 3 colony moons, lovingly called the Triad by its inhabitants. They were a breathtaking sight, aligning at dusk, pretty as a string of perfect pearls against the velvet blackness of space. What the Vrex didn't know, couldn't possibly have known, was that Human Defense Archives had long ago labeled them with a chillingly bureaucratic designation: Strike Package B-19 Simultaneous. From the cold, dark expanse of the asteroid belt, 3 seemingly innocuous rocks, each the size of Gibraltar, had been accelerating for months, perhaps even years, under the cloak of stealth drives. They weren't just rocks. They were pre-programmed messengers of extinction. They punched through the Triad moons, not with the fiery drama of an explosion, but with the brutal clinical efficiency of 1/10 light speed. The impacts weren't explosions. They were lessons in planetary anatomy, dissecting worlds with surgical precision. Core magma, ripped from the planet's heart, splashed into space, cooling into glittering, deadly arcs before freezing into lethal glass shards. Survivors on the far side of the moons, those who initially escaped the direct impact, had a mere 3 minutes of bone-shaking quake before the orbital debris, flung outwards and then gravitationally pulled back, wrapped them in a meteor storm that lasted a week. There was no human hand pulling a trigger in real time, no last-minute moral dilemma. These rocks had been nudged years earlier, their trajectories plotted, their mission programmed to finish the trip regardless of any pleas or changes in galactic politics. It turns out extinction, for humanity's final protocol, could be a set-and-forget operation, a cold, calculated act of vengeance delivered by the immutable laws of physics. On the sprawling agricultural belts of Vrex, life continued with a pastoral rhythm. Here, they still kept vast herds of giant, 6-legged grazers called hern, their sheer bulk a testament to Vrexian bioengineering. These creatures provided food, fiber, and a sense of enduring prosperity. Then, overnight, the animals began coughing, a dry, hacking sound that quickly turned wet and ragged. By sunrise, their blood, usually a rich crimson, turned a foamy, unsettling pink. By noon, farmers, initially concerned by the strange illness, noticed something far more horrifying. The hern were bleeding from their eyes, but they weren't dying. Not quickly, anyway. They lingered, suffering, a grotesque testament to a biological process gone utterly wrong. That evening, the same pink froth, the same agonizing cough, appeared in the barracks of Vrex soldiers, far from the agricultural plains. Humans, in their long, bloody history, once weaponized smallpox against each other. We are a species that keeps templates for everything. A few genetic rewrites to coat proteins, a clever swap of receptors to target specific Vrexian biology, an added latency period to ensure maximum spread before symptoms became undeniable, and suddenly you have a greeting card addressed directly to a genome. It wasn't about killing quickly. It was about crippling, about spreading fear and despair. 48 hours later, the Vrex Military Medical Corps, overwhelmed and terrified, requested emergency quarantine. 60 hours later, no one answered their desperate calls. A week later, the civilian government of Rex, its people dying in agony, its military shattered, beamed an unconditional surrender to a dead Earth, begging for antidote terms, for any terms at all. The signal, a digital plea for mercy, is still traveling through the vast, cold silence of space, unheard, unheeded. A Rex battle archive, miraculously, survived on a moon base, untouched by the preceding waves. Rescue ships, still reeling from the incomprehensible devastation, arrived. They copied the data, desperate to understand, to find an answer, a weakness, something. Every file describing the first 3 waves, the nanites, the kinetics, the biophages, was crisp, horrifyingly clear. But anything concerning the 4th wave, the entry simply labeled chronal shear, was garbled static, a digital scream of corrupted data. Crews who attempted to read these files reported headaches, a strange, persistent ache behind their eyes. Within days, these headaches turned into something far more disturbing. They argued fiercely over events that didn't match their own logs, their own memories. No, the triad blew up last month. One would insist, eyes wide with conviction. Not yesterday. Another would counter, equally certain. What are you talking about? Vrex Prime is still there. I saw it this morning. Compasses spun wildly, refusing to settle. Star charts disagreed with each other, with navigation computers, with the very stars outside the viewport. Some swore Vrex Prime still existed, producing cherished childhood photos of themselves standing proudly before its crystal towers, memories as vivid and real as the taste of their last meal. Others wept inconsolably, insisting the planet had fallen years ago, that they were orphaned refugees, adrift in a hostile galaxy. Both sets of memories, utterly contradictory, felt equally real, equally painful. Human scientists, in their time, had worried endlessly about the paradoxes of time travel and memory manipulation. But the protocol, in its ruthless efficiency, only asked one question: is the target culture recognizable to itself? If the answer was a resounding, fractured no, then mission accomplished. The Vrex were not just defeated. They were unmade, their very history fractured, their collective identity shattered beyond repair. News, or perhaps the sheer, cold terror of it, spread faster than light via quantum relays, ripping through the galactic community like a wildfire. The Galactic Council, a body usually characterized by its ponderous bureaucracy, convened in an emergency session, their usual decorum shattered by panic. Envoys from pacifist waterworlds, their voices trembling, demanded sanctions against a corpse, against a dead Earth that had just unleashed unimaginable horrors. Military advisors, usually hawkish, suggested pooling fleets, not to attack, but to halt the automated storm that continued to rage unchecked. Then, they read humanity's appended clause, the final, chilling addendum to the final protocol. Protocol remains active until aggressor species census equals 0 across all charts. Translation: we didn't just define surrender out of existence. We defined survival out of existence for those who dared to commit genocide against us. There was no negotiation, no quarter, no escape clause. A collective shiver ran through the galaxy. Some species quietly, hastily, erased all records of ever trading with Vrex, hoping to distance themselves from the fate of a species annihilated. Others, in their terror, updated their lexicons. To human became a verb, meaning to delete beyond diplomacy, a synonym for absolute, unyielding annihilation. A single, final line scrolled across human frequencies, a last, chilling communique that echoed through the stunned silence of the galaxy. We offered the galaxy 2 gifts, reason and restraint. You broke the second. Enjoy the first. No further communiques arrived, because civility, you see, was never humanity's factory default. It was an optional patch, a hard-won upgrade we installed after realizing we hated living in fear of ourselves, after millennia of internal strife. We learned to be civilized, to be restrained. But when you uninstall that patch, when you strip away that hard-earned civility, you awaken something ancient, something primal. And you do so at your own peril. If the story rattled you, if it made you imagine the council chambers where no one sleeps anymore, then you're exactly where we want you to be. Hit subscribe, Drop a comment telling us which wave unsettled you most. And please, share this with that history buff friend who keeps saying, war will never get worse than nukes. Trust us, we've got darker timelines queued up. From the moment Admiral Korth mocked a final warning to the last Hern's bloody cough, we have watched a civilization discover, in the most brutal way imaginable, that mercy is a toggle switch. And humanity, in its final, desperate act, had flipped it to off. Humanity's final protocol wasn't built for victory in the traditional sense. It was built for certainty. The certainty that if we were to be extinguished, our destroyers would follow utterly and completely. And that certainty, that cold, implacable engine of retribution, is now cruising the stars. It's looking for anyone who mistakes restraint for inability, for anyone who believes that a species that once dreamed of peace has forgotten how to unleash hell. So, if you ever hear a calm, synthetic voice whisper, "May God forgive us," echoing across your comms, take my advice. Switch off your transponder, power down your systems, and pray your species never kept receipts. Because Earth might be gone, a memory fractured, but its last invoice is still being collected, in full and with interest.